It's true. Not all, showers versus growers. Dennis, happy hour to you.
Happy, thank God it's here. Oh, what a day.
Here we are, man.
Oof.
It's
out of sorts all day.
You've been out of sorts.
Like the other generation used to say. Just out of sorts. What does that mean? Out of sorts. Not sort of what? Sort of fine, sort of okay.
You're unsorted. Sorts. Like, to me, as a computer scientist, I'm thinking that you're not in order. Oh. It's like you picked up your hand in cards, and there are queens and twos and fours in different places, and you haven't sorted them yet. And therefore you're out of sorts.
Easily to fix with the card hand, not so much with life.
True. The queens and the kings and the jacks are just all over the place. Not to mention the aces. And are the aces high or are the aces low, man? It's like in life.
Aces are high, man, unless you're in a certain game.
What sort of game is that?
A game where the lowest card in your hand is also wild. So if you have a 2 in your hand and a 2 on the board, then you've got 2 wild cards.
Yeah, but when are the aces low?
And in that case, no. And in that case, if you have in your hand the ace, you can use it as low, because the low spade wins half the pot. Uh-huh. But if you do that, you cannot also use it in your hand as a high ace. In other words, using the ace as high, I have a royal straight flush.
Right.
Using the low ace, which, right?
If you're in the low ace lane.
Ace, spade flush.
Yeah.
So that would turn a royal straight flush into just a flush. Because the ace would be low and the royal straight flush would need a 10 to be completed, because the ace is removed from the mix. So you retain the dual nature of the ace. You retain the dual nature of the ace, but there's a consequence.
Just saying, blackjack, the ace has a dual nature.
Yes, and unlike in blackjack, there's no reason to ever try to play it both ways. It's obvious. It's obvious which way you want it from looking at your hand.
Yeah, when I've been teaching my kids blackjack, because they're going to be casino sharks one day, they are always confused when they have an ace and a 7, right? It's like 18 is pretty good, but also maybe you get a 6 and a 7 and you get up to 21 or whatever. But
right.
Yeah. That's It's an interesting caveat in that particular game. And how did we get into this topic?
Speaking of caveats, so we've both seen the conclusion finale.
Do we want to jump right into that?
Yes, we do. I can't wait.
Okay, so later I have some personal news and some family news that needs to be covered. So let's time block that out. Okay, so holy shit, Mare of Easttown. What a series. So in preparation, I listened to a couple of other podcasts. Apparently there are podcasts, imagine this, that just go through every week whatever happened in a series, in a weekly series thing.
I've seen them.
Which is due to the Netflix effect, where Netflix drops everything all at once. It's mostly HBO shows. And this particular one, they made references to previously having covered the unforgettable, whatever the other...
Worth forgetting, actually.
Yeah. Yes.
Quite worth forgetting.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so let's jump into this. We've seen the final episode, and to recap our positions last time, because it makes me look favorable. You were very convinced.
We both had parts of what we thought would happen.
Yes. You were so convinced that what they had shown on the penultimate episode of Billy being guilty was true, and you were pretty sure that John was going to murder him at the river because John had been part of a threesome with Aaron. And I wasn't so sure about all that, but I was convinced that...
the picture was of the three of them.
Right.
And here's a huge thing in your favor. You said the picture was of her and John.
I don't know that I said that, but I was sure that John had been...
No, you said it because I crushed you.
Okay. So, yes, I thought that John had been having relations with Aaron, and that I was sure... Well, I wasn't sure. So I suspected that the murderer was Lori, who had been with us the whole time and brilliantly acted and with total motive. And so one of the podcasts that I listened to actually interviewed both the actress that plays Lori and the writer of the whole series. And the writer of the whole series talked about how they had to both trick the viewer, but also not make the viewer feel too stupid.
Or cheated.
Or cheating too much.
Well,
and I think they did a pretty good job with that.
So may I on that point?
Over to you.
Because here was the thing that I said last week when you were saying that Lori did it. I said to you, and you recall this, are you forgetting about the fact that Billy confessed? And you waved it off, and the image of the scene was John with his hand on Billy's back and neck, very huddled.
Indeed.
Over a kitchen table, kept saying to Billy, I've got to hear you say it. I need to hear you say it. And then Billy finally looks up at him and says, I killed her, and burst into tears.
Yep.
Of course, what I thought, obviously, because I said it, which was intended, was that was a confession.
Right.
And just the most brilliant scene on this point you're making about how to write it in such a way that the twist was perfectly fine. It wasn't weird or jaded or a stretch or a hammer in the fireplace, as you had mentioned in reference to
The Undoing.
Oh my God. There wasn't anything like that. We could talk a little bit about the gun in the shed kind of thing. But consequence there, of course, is it's a 14-year-old who did it, right? Why did you put 13. The gun back? Blah, blah, blah. But in that scene, of course, John was making certain that when Billy said he was going to confess, that he was going to confess as they agreed to be the perpetrator of the murder, not to admit that he was the murderer. And John...
Whoa, let's clarify on this. Perpetrator of the murder versus murderer is what?
Or not the perpetrator of the murder. The imposter of the...
Perpetrator of the murder of my daughter. Yeah.
Whoa. All right. Smittix tonight. Hello.
No, yeah. And I suspect we've seen, and also we suspected in the unwatchable, that I suspect that more than once in history, a parent has admitted to a crime that their kid did to do the time, because that's what a parent... Not that all parents would do that, but that some parents might think so lowly of themselves and so highly of their kids that they might, fall on that sword. So in that way, it's understandable. But I specifically, well, first of all, and some of the other discussions I've heard about this final episode reference this, is how quickly they moved through John's trial and conviction, and everything was all wrapped up in a lovely bow by the midway point of the episode.
Yes, good point. Which
means
of course
that there was a twist coming, but that, I don't know. I remember when John he had a specific line where Mare was questioning him about what did the gun look like, and he was like, just a typical handgun. Like a handgun, like all the handguns are.
It all happened so quick, Mare.
Yeah, and that was the moment when it was really clear to me that this was a bullshit confession.
Right. At the dinner party, she is listening to her husband Frank, her ex-husband Frank, say the thing that made no sense was that night that he said that he killed her. He came to pick them up, and he was in a great mood and laughing and telling
that was one of the clues, yes.
Singing songs, and with the astounding acting that is in that show, that moment when she blinks, just blinks, screws up her lip a little bit and blinks. You knew, because you knew Mare by that time, that she had just filed that away. Yeah. And she wasn't even sure what she filed away, but she was going to pull it out later.
And it seemed... So part of me as a whodunit consumer wants there to be all the clues so that I can figure it out before the protagonist does.
I thought about you saying that.
However, you also need, especially in this scenario where we talk about the crime and then the investigation is looking at the past behind the crime with interviewing people, et cetera, which is the way investigations work and whodunits work. It makes sense that there would be some clue that comes forth later that you couldn't have known, but like if you're following along with Mare, she couldn't have known because she's in theory as smart as all of us or more, and so if we had all the information before this episode, she would have figured it out. But I don't know, first of all, the acting around that boy and the Mare knows, oh my God, Mare knows, just blew me away. Like he was a child that had committed a mistaken murder and knew he was in trouble.
So what the kid did, which is why it was so important for John to protect him, was that it wasn't just an accident. The murder was actually perfectly described by John in the jail about what had happened. I went there, I had a gun, I just meant to scare her, and we struggled, and the gun went off, and I shot her, and then I just lost it, and I shot her again. Right. And she said, where? And he...
In the face.
In the face. But it actually, that's not as accurate as it might have been. Because where she was shot was above her right eyebrow in the head.
Yeah, it was a forehead.
And the general thing of the face, this wasn't something that he couldn't remember. This was what was never explained, unless you tell me that it was, and I missed it, was that a couple things. That what they did when they went to...
He and Billy went to clean up the
scene.
Mess. Right.
They went to go clean it up, and then they took her clothes off and threw her body onto the rocks.
Right.
Set her body, anyway, however you want to describe it. But their crime is so serious that catches the same penalty as the perpetrator or the person who did it, either one.
That was the thing that immediately following, I was thinking, if John didn't do it, then he should go free. But then I realized that no, John and Billy, and they actually referenced Billy getting out after so many months because they helped obscure, I don't know what the legal term is, they helped cover up the falsify the crime. So but presumably that's like a matter of months, and then he's going to get out, and that family shit. But what did I want to talk about? Okay, so one problem that I had with the script, one hole that I couldn't figure out, was the way that Mare discovered the gun. And on second watch, the moment where he says this was a detective issue Colt or whatever it was, and she looks up at him like, can you show me this gun? And then he says, oh, and there were 2 rounds missing. But what I don't understand is he's talking about, and he calls her over because he's just lonely.
He's missing things.
Primarily he's lonely. He's a widower, and he wants confirmation, or he wants to know, does this grief get better? And she says no, he learned to live with the unacceptable.
So do you remember the scene earlier in the series of him and his wife, the then deceased wife, early on, like first episode maybe? First episode.
I just was, while I was waiting for this call to start, I was watching their first episode, and I saw the time when she was called over to their house to look at
that was at his house. And she erased the tape of the kid because she thought this is ridiculous.
But he called her over not to talk about a missing gun, but to talk about loss and grief. And also, I lost my Eagles mug that was super important to me, and one day it was just gone, and then I lost this other thing, and my gun was missing. I got
to disagree with you a little bit there. This is what I think, that it certainly was a motive from him as a lonely, recently made widower who wanted to talk it, but he did call her to talk about specifically things that had been missing, and his interest in talking to her about the gun far outstripped anything else on his little list, because he only said 3 things that he was missing. So I think that there was that expectation on his part, no intention, as you say.
But allow me to get to the plot hole. The plot hole was, he said, I remember going out there because I had to do a thing to get a tool for the deck, and the gun was there. And then I went out another time, and the gun wasn't there. And I thought, that's weird. The gun disappeared. And then I went out a third time, and the gun was there. So that's great. But then we hear and more or less see, I guess we don't see the return of the gun on the footage, but Ryan, the murderer, tells us that he rode his bike over to the old guy's house, got the gun, went to the park, shot Aaron, came back, and then that same night returned the gun back to where it was. So it doesn't make sense to me that the old man ever saw the gun missing.
No,
I think the writers just fucked up on this.
I disagree. Let me tell you why. So it's the night before the murder. And he does quite frequently. He goes to the shed for something, like he often does.
The kid went
as we would too.
at midnight.
Follow me. It's the day before. He goes out, he gets a tool.
Yeah.
And he sees that his gun is there, because when he goes in the shed, occasionally he looks at one of...
As an old man does, go to a shed. As you can confirm.
Or maybe as you will, when you become
as you do.
more decrepit. And he establishes that the gun is there. Then, the next day, he wakes up, like a lot of old people do, at 5 a.m. No, what time do we think that Ryan returned? What time was the murder? The murder was
he got the gun around midnight. Killed
and took it back
Aaron
at about 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
You're right then.
Okay.
You're right then. Yeah.
There's a plot hole, but I don't care because it's such a great...
Right.
And what I love, the final episode is so great. I love, for example, the scene where Mare forgives her mother for being such a terrible mother. Like, they have this little heart-to-heart there in some bar somewhere where her mother says, look, your father was a jerk, and I took some of that out on you, and I'm sorry.
I was angry all of the time.
And, yes, and I'm sorry for that. And Mare says, it's okay, and I forgive you. But then there's this overtone of, you need to forgive yourself for your son. Kevin, maybe?
Kevin, yeah.
And to which Mare is, I'm not ready for that. But
yeah.
Then I also love that... So a lot of the stuff I've read about this series has been referring to how it deals with the opioid crisis, which I'm somewhat removed from over here in Spain. But now that I think about it, because I just watched the first episode, I remember his name. Freddie had an opioid problem, as does the mother of the kid that Mare wants custody of. And
what's his name?
Yeah, not DJ, the other one. And her in this final episode where she says, look, I'm trying, but I can't. And Mare says, look, I know that you love him. And the mother says, you must be happy about this. And Mare says, look, I'm happy that the kid is getting cared for. Whether or not it's you or me, I just want the kid to be cared for.
Right.
And so anyway, that was a nice scene.
The writing excelled the emotional background of every single primary character, and the depth of Mare's depravity over the loss of her son is so understandable and so perfectly tuned and played.
Yes.
She is in absolute disbelief and just won't even go there in order to cope. She has suspended the grieving process at the very first stage. But her acting is so expressionful with her face, her look, her demeanor. It's a characterization that is just astounding.
Yeah. So
I think it's the best thing that she's done, and that's saying something.
I expect Emmys for Winslet and the Laurie actress as well.
Julie Nicholson.
Yes, that they were just fantastic. And so in this podcast that I heard of an interview with Nicholson, they asked, so apparently when they shoot these miniseries, and I've heard of this for all movies and whatever, they shoot them all out of order. Like they figure out, like, you might be shooting on one given day, you might be shooting something from the first episode and the last episode on the same day. And so they asked her about this moment in the car at the end where she was like,
I saw that.
My Ryan,
yes.
my Ryan, my Ryan.
Yes.
And
she lost it.
Yeah. And
it was pretty astounding.
Yeah. That was just like fucking fantastic acting.
Now, wasn't she in The Other?
The
Others?
Yes. No,
I mistook her for somebody else.
Yeah. In The Other, it might have been called.
Stephen King.
Yeah. And she said, that was actually one of the first things that we filmed, but because they had read the whole script, like, she knew what was going on, and also it was a super cold day, and et cetera, et cetera. But apparently she and Kate Winslet are like friends in life. Like Kate attended her wedding and is like the godmother to her daughter or whatever. And like, they're actually besties in real life, which made their chemistry so much more spectacular. And I guess it was there when I heard that Kate Winslet, who was one of the executive producers and was very much controlling the show as it was being filmed. She had these binders full of the timeline and stuff, and whenever they were filming one thing, she could come in and say, well, actually, despite the fact that we filmed all of this other stuff in the future, in the episode future, we don't know that yet, so we can't really refer to that or whatever. So apparently she's super detail-oriented and focused on stuff like that.
So here's a question for you, and this is as close to the hammer in the fireplace as I can get. Why?
Dishwasher.
The hammer, the dishwasher, but it was also that he hid it in the fireplace, if I recall, the outdoor fireplace.
Fine.
Ridiculous.
Jesus Christ.
But where Billy comes home to his father's house, covered in bloody clothes, and apparently is washing bloody clothes. And the question is, he just absolutely out of his head? Well, why is he washing these bloody clothes? Why isn't he doing whatever one knows to do when you commit a murder, is to burn the clothes? And yet he comes home and covered in blood, and in all the stuff they do to cover
Billy's
up.
Not smart.
No.
Welcome to the How to Commit a Murder podcast.
And the fact,
rule number 1: burn your clothes.
The fact that
come home naked.
That was part of the plan that John was in on. So it isn't just about Billy. And it could be chalked up to they're out of their head. Like when the cop asked Ryan, why did you take the gun back? And he said, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. I guess I was just scared. And you'd expect that from a 14-year-old. But Billy showing up to
13.
Wash clothes.
Okay,
why
look.
would you do that?
So this was one of the things that annoyed me about the previous episodes, was that this had happened, and then it was just the old man decided to confide in someone that, oh yeah, I saw Billy with some bloody clothes. It's like
he told Mare, right?
Mare or somebody.
Who did he tell?
Yeah. So we could have had that information before, but then he sat on it for a while and then he released it in a way that
He did tell Mare in his living room, right?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't live with it another second.
Okay.
That was what was driving a lot of this movie, was people just not being able to live with something for another second, just exploding out of their skull. Something's gotta change, something's gotta happen.
Okay, so back to your Catholic roots. How about the sermon?
Oh gosh.
Where the priest says, look, I know that a lot of you don't appreciate me anymore, and you think that you might, I don't know.
You have hesitations.
You might have hesitations, but what I loved about that was this inclusion of, he said, look, we are a community. And there are people among us who have been pushed away from the community, and maybe for good reason, maybe for not, but it's not our job to make that choice. We need to welcome them back. And pretty clearly that is what caused Mare to go and give Laurie a good old hug.
Well, and I'm glad you raised that scene, because it was poignant in that when Mare was in the church and had a demeanor which she had never had.
Also, why the fuck is Mare in church? Let's
what?
question that. Mare doesn't go to church.
She does now. She did for this sermon.
She didn't.
No.
But for the return of this particular...
I don't imagine. That church was packed for a reason.
Yes.
This was a huge event for this priest to come and give the sermon. And everyone knew it was coming because it was printed in the bulletin. So she showed up anyway in a mood that you hadn't seen her, which was at once calm and pensive and peaceful. You not once saw her in the movie with any sense of that. And there she was holding her grandson, who's, I want to say his name is Josh. And I love that. And the fact that, as you obviously are so right, and she acted on it, not only with Julie, but also there was a scene before she went to Julie's house where she I can't remember who it was. Was it her mother?
Yes, she went to her mother.
Or did she go to prison and see?
No.
But the forgiveness culminated obviously with, which is the deepest message.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful way to end the series on the most powerful of all of its strings of attachment to us, which was the emotional string, rather than on the whodunit string, which, and I want to raise a point about your earlier point about the type of detective series you like. But anyway, that was my kind of conclusion. I thought it was pretty close to impeccable. And I think you're right as far as awards, and hands down, best actress, Kate Winslet. Hands down, no question. Who knows what else comes along, but...
So apparently the end of the script was supposed to be with Mare and Laurie collapsed in their kitchen, which the actress that played Laurie described as, we had to take 25 takes because we were like up and then we were down and we were collapsing and we were under here, which I thought was funny. But so the article that I sent you that you could not read because the New York Times had a paywall described how Kate had done all of this research to appear as if she was from Philly. And one of the things that she did was, like, she walked around and, talked to the locals. But apparently she's, like, vegan or something. And so whenever she was eating her hoagies or her Philly cheese steaks, they were made of fake cheese and steak and stuff. And it was just like, man, whatever. But
so what did you think later after the fact of the premonition? It's not the right word for what novelists do when they write screenwriters, but the setting of the event when Ryan became so incensed at the berating and the making fun of his sister,
yes,
that he attacked the boy, and the beating continued for a pretty uncomfortable few longer than what you knew was normal in retrospect. Otherwise, I wouldn't have remembered that scene.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it was quite the, what's the word I want?
Signaling.
That describes it, but there's a particular word of that. I can't, but anyway.
Premonitioning.
No.
Yes. So, look, I imagine that most kids that have a younger sister, especially one that is disabled, special needs, that they must be extremely sensitive to that.
Yeah, Fury was notable.
And the asshole that was picking on her deserved more than what he received. So, I don't know. I don't think you can condemn someone for being violent if they watch violence occur to someone that they love and then deliver a response. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it was very well done. I love a series where I just can't wait to see the next episode.
Yes.
I just can't wait. And it's funny in these COVID pandemic times, of course, that because we've been so isolated, that these are the events that we look forward to, like what we used to look forward to as a get-together or a night out at the tavern.
We used to look forward to getting to the next episode of whatever. I disagree with that. But so the Kate Winslet said that when she first saw some of the early cuts of the series, they had edited out some of her flaws. They had taken away some of her wrinkles, and in the sex scene with Guy Pearce, they had taken away some of her extra belly, and she fought very much against that. She said, "I'm 46 years old. Right. Show me as I am. I know all of my flaws. I know what I am, and this particular character should be even older than I look."
Yeah. And should look older than I look.
Right. And so obviously whenever she appears in some magazine article or whatever, it's all extra painted up. But
in fact, one of the pictures you saw of her in the feeds about the show, and in fact, the picture of her on HBO when you go to the cast and you click on cast, the picture of her in that is from a fashion magazine, and it for no other reason it's striking. And did you see or just hear the interview with Julie Nicholson?
I heard.
So I saw it, and in the video, she is completely made up as an actress would be, and it's pretty remarkable with her because her face is just completely freckled. When she applies makeup, those freckles are gone.
Huh.
She doesn't look like that.
In this series, she does. She looks as old as she can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so now I've got to search for a replacement. I got into the Kevin Bacon series, City on a Hill, that his wife, Kyra Sedgwick, is directing. And that series, I went into the 5th episode, and it's so odd, but I so dislike Kevin Bacon's character in the series that I stopped watching it. I thought, well, isn't that a shame that because you like the protagonist, as you're supposed to not like the protagonist, and the whole series is based on what a dick he is, that that dulls your interest in wanting to see it. But so I'm thinking maybe it's something else.
Yeah, we'll figure out something else to watch together until you can fucking figure out Netflix.
I know. My life's a mess.
So
I've got all sorts of technical issues that need to be addressed. My internet is slow as shit. All I got to do is unplug the thing and take a minute to reboot it, and if not, then call the help desk. And I can't seem to focus on getting it done. I do, however, I have a fence story for you when you're ready, but to let you know I did my homework. And my note to myself said, words.
Okay, so, man, we've spent a bunch of time on Easttown. I have two pieces of news.
Let's go with your news.
So
personal and family.
Personal and family. Nicely done. So personal news is I have hurt myself. My right arm, whenever I am, for some reason, not right now when I'm podcasting, but if I ever try and do any work with my right arm, I have this shooting pain down the top of my arm and then my forearm.
Is it when you lift your arm up over your head that this pain happens, like this?
No, it's not. It's whenever I put my hand down to type at the keyboard. And however, there's also this constant pain here when I'm not doing anything. And I'm concerned because I make my living having a keyboard.
You need a steroid shot to start with.
Right. I've been taking ibuprofen to reduce the swelling, and I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow and a physiotherapist appointment tomorrow as well to see.
Will they force you to do physiotherapy before they give you a shot, or will they do what good medicine would do, which is to immediately decrease the inflammation by a shot rather than force you to go through physical therapy in order to prove the need for the shot?
I will report back next week.
I think you should be demanding. I want to be your medical coach.
Okay.
Hey, listen. Invite me to join your interview with your time with the doctor virtually.
Okay.
And I'll join by phone. Just say, Doc, I've got a medical. This is perfectly within your rights. I have a medical advocate, and I'd like to get him on the phone, and let me handle it.
Great.
If he doesn't give you a shot.
You can talk to him in English as much as you would like.
No, I'll learn Spanish. How much time do I have?
13 hours? I don't know.
Bad.
Yeah. So there's that, which has actually stopped me from working. Like, I can't work.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So I've been on sick leave, basically, because I can't fucking sit at the computer and type. So, yeah. And which is why close examiners to our feed will notice that our last episode went out very late because I was resting. But so there's that. And to get back to family matters, we have a new member of the family.
You have a new pet dog.
So close.
Cat?
Cat.
Oh.
We have a cat.
Oh, that's right. You're cat people. That's right.
Well,
cat is quieter.
Cat
is quieter.
I am. Hey, look, if I had to choose, I'm a dog person. But if I had to choose what level of requirements I need in my life, I'm going to choose a cat. Because a cat, you've got your litter box, and that's about it. With a dog, and I see all the poor dog people
walking their dog.
They have to. So we live in high-rise apartments, right? So people have to take their dogs out and they walk them around, and then 90% of them pick up their dog shit with their plastic bag, and that's their life.
Do you know that people who have dogs live longer than people who don't?
No.
Yes. Google that as a simple statement of medical fact in its simplicity, and see if in fact that I'm correct.
Okay. I won't do that, but exercise for the listener. So our nanny has some cats at her rural sort of farmhouse that she, to my mind, irresponsibly does not spay or neuter. And so their cat, they honestly don't know where these kittens have come from. It's like, it might have been from this mother or from this father or from this mother or from this father, but we have some kittens. And my kids have been asking for a cat for many, many, many years, and my wife has basically said no for the whole time. And I finally decided, look, I'm the one that spends most of the time at home, I wouldn't mind having a little kitty here to keep me company. And so I sort of maneuvered the agreement that, yes, we could potentially have one.
Kids love it, huh?
And look, we got it yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And it spent all night crying.
Oh, no.
Well, no. That's what kitties do. That's what little kittens do.
And you was like, come here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
No. Like, we left it in a room, and it spent all night crying. And, however, the crazy thing is that I went down, like, I got up at 3 a.m., and I went downstairs to the bathroom where the cat was. And I was like, okay, let's see how you're doing down here. And I could not find the motherfucking thing.
Oh, no.
It was not there. I had heard it all night long. Yeah. And I came down, and it was not there. And I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I'm gonna...
The goldfish flushed the kitty down the toilet.
Right. So I was like, I guess tomorrow I'll get up and tell the kids that we don't have a cat anymore. Well, and so I closed the door, as I had, because the door is closed. Like, the cat could not get out of the bathroom. And I was walking back upstairs to go to bed, and I heard the meow. Like, what the fuck? And so I came back down, and I opened the door, and I waited, and I heard meow. It was clearly in the fucking bathroom. And turns out it was back behind our bidet. That's a very Spanish thing that we have that no one, as I know, uses. Like, there's the toilet, and then there's the bidet that is basically just a little lowered sink where there's water comes out.
Don't you hang your ass over?
In theory, but like I don't know how it works. Like, I honestly don't understand.
You have one. Maybe you should research it a little bit.
No,
Maybe
but...
just what you needed if you walk around smelling like ass.
Yeah, but like, I've thought about it, and it doesn't make any sense. So, like, because you have to, like, take your pants out from under your... I don't know. Anyway, so our house was built with this, and our bidet has this hollow part inside of it. Imagine a toilet seat that has a part underneath it that is horseshoe shaped, and underneath it is where all the pipes are, but there's this hollow part underneath, and I had never ever considered that part was hollow, but of course it was, and so the cat was under there for...
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then we spent more time than we should have. Like, we should have just reached in there and grabbed the little bastard and pulled him out. But every time I got close, he was like, and I
hissing.
Like hissing as a kitten would.
Yeah.
Right. And
mild.
Right. And I wasn't concerned that he was going to bite my finger off or anything like that. But I also wanted, naively, in retrospect, I wanted to not give him like trauma when he was in my home. And
certainly not on the first night.
Not right. So anyway, I left him in there, and then the next day, the nanny came, where she knows his mother and siblings and whatever, and she just reached the fuck in there and pulled him out.
Yeah.
And now I know, after the first day, which today is the first day, now I know that anytime he is in any sort of corner and you want to grab him, no matter how much he loves you, he's going to go...
You grab him by the scruff of his back of his neck.
Yeah, but still, anytime he feels threatened, he's going to do that sound.
God.
But anyway, I learned that there is a little hole in my house that...
You did not know. Now you can hide your stuff in there. Hide whatever you want to hide.
Now we can hide, if we weren't going to publish this episode. Yes, that...
Hey, it could be the vault.
Hey, look, man, if anyone listens to this, then they can come and rob my 10,000 euros that I am keeping in my bidet.
Well, hey, so I got to fit in a fence story because you'll appreciate this.
Tell me.
So the fence is just laid, and because of the downhill slope of my driveway from my house to my shed, the fence increases in length from 7'10" at the house to 8'6" at the shed, which is an 8-inch drop or an 8-inch slope. And so when I laid the fence and I set the fence posts straight and I built the fence to them, I was able to lengthen the boards as the fence went downhill. And as keeping them straight, they were straight to the house and the shed, and they were also conforming to the slope. Now, when I built the first door, which you recall in vivid detail, I wedged the frame of the door into the fence and built the door as if it were part of the fence, so it had the same exact starting and ending point from what was level and what was parallel and what it looked like, so that it could match the fence as best. When I did the sliding door the other day, I didn't build it up in the air. I built it on the ground, like a puzzle. And I built it perfectly square, but it wasn't square to the slope.
What?
And so as a result, I had a fence that showed itself as very straight, and a door which was also straight but looked like it was hanging on an angle, because the straight of the door didn't match the straight of the fence. So I had to take the sliding door apart so that all was left was the hinges holding the boards. But it was one of those things where we had our first family get-together out in our new patio, and I commented on the fact that I was unhappy that it was crooked. And a couple people, of course, said what you'd expect, because no one will notice it but you.
No, it's
and I
fine,
thought,
Dennis.
well, but nobody really,
you're great, Dennis.
This is the way
We
it
love you,
starts,
Dennis.
is that it matters to me.
Yeah.
And so to make matters worse, my wife, as my wife would do, mentioned how crooked it was.
To make
at
matters
least
worse,
6
my
times.
wife.
And then laughed or chuckled every time she said it, because she knew that she was compelling me to fix it. Not because she cared whether it was crooked or not, but she knew that in my compulsive behavior that I'd have to. It took me 6 hours to take it apart and put it back together again. And it's now lying perfectly straight against it. It's a hard thing to consider. That straight isn't always straight. One straight isn't straight to another straight.
What?
The fence is straight like this, and the door, as it turns out, was straight like this. Oh my God.
Okay.
Fix though.
That made sense.
What, you can't?
So
I thought you could
do,
show.
Do you have photos?
I thought you could show images on our thing. Isn't that what your show notes are? Is images and stuff? Take a picture of this. Ready?
No.
Freeze frame.
So you have photos to send me?
No, I didn't take photos of this endeavor.
Get your shit together tomorrow.
Well, the odd thing was that when I had to redo the fence, it went from an interesting and rather enjoyable job to one that just became slightly annoying. So celebratory pictures were not. I will take you a picture of the finished product, because I want to show you, for your reference. You'll see the. Just remember this: the notched boards that I used to tie it all together. Notched boards.
Notched.
So I have, for the next several episodes, I have a new series that we'll introduce, sort of like the Guinness Book of World Records, which you started, and then we were going to go back to it. We never did.
The 100 teens we're in.
Oh, the Mermaids was the last Guinness Book of World Records. So you remember our friend Joe Bethany, who in the interview we had with him in episode number, I want to guess,
blah, 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 blah.
86, being my guess. We discussed his novel Coventry, which is set in a prison in North Carolina, where he and I, at different times, worked together down there. And I wanted to describe, in the series, and give you a quote that do what we had just discussed last week, what a powerful novel does in a poetic fashion, is give you an image that is so striking that it sets the stage for so much more when you're reading it. And in this is early, and it is chapter 3. Joe is introducing the character of McGregor Gady, who is an old-time prison guy back in the Depression, who became famous, absolutely famous, if not infamous, for his ability to find and track escaped inmates. And as you will hear later on as the episodes continue, that he does it with a strange man by the name of Frank, who can sniff out escaped convicts, who is referred to as the Hound Boy. But this quote sets the stage for McGregor Gady.
Okay.
And just briefly, and then I'll leave you with this to think about, and we'll comment. This is how the novel describes him looking for these escapees. McGregor Gady would throw rocks. He would do whatever. His temper was exquisite, ingenious. If he were holding a gun, he'd shoot. Spraying pheasant shot with both barrels, the convict would jump, his leg bicycling in midair, come down in the weeds, his shanks and loins punctured with growing red periods. He would throw rocks. He hit a convict with a dog once, beat another with a live black snake. He'd run him down with the truck, throw himself on him from the speeding vehicle, pound him with his fists with a coffee pot, never saying a word. Few of them tested him, but came on out, solemn as church, and surrendered at the sight of him.
Nice. Powerful. Uh-huh.
He hit him with a dog once. One time, he slapped him with a black snake.
How? Okay, that was a pretty bizarre ending to episode number 113. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/113. You can help support us at patreon.com/happyhour. And if you really want to help us, you can tell a friend about our podcast and recommend it to them, because that's the way you grow listenership. And we'll see you next week.